If I say the name Antonio Brown today, you may think of a guy who's kind of on the outlandish side of humans. But what if you didn't? Let's take a trip back in time to about 9 years ago, just before the 2015-16 NFL season. The Steelers are coming off of an 11-5 season where they lost in the wild card round to the Ravens. But specifically, Antonio Brown is coming off of his first All-Pro season, his second straight Pro Bowl, in a year where he led the league in yards and catches. And in the 2015-16 regular season, Antonio Brown puts up a career high in catches and yards en route to his second straight All-Pro season, his third straight Pro Bowl. The Steelers finish out the regular season 10-6, leading to a divisional clash in the wildcard round against the Bengals. January 9th, 2016 is the date of this clash, and the game looks pretty close, the Bengals leading with 22 seconds left, when Big Ben targets Antonio Brown across the middle, and this happens.
Roethlisberger from the pocket, middle of the field, incomplete. A flag does come in. Went to the head. Lewis Harris is going to be flagged for this on the hit.
Vontaze Burfict had already made a reputation for himself as a dirty player. Up to this point, he had been fined for 7 different plays, as well as making some questionable decisions that weren't exactly against the rules, twisting people's ankles after the play in a Panthers game, celebrating Le'Veon Bell's injury, and diving at Big Ben's knees. But this is the hit of Vontaze Burfict's career. This video is going to be assuming that Burfict hit led to most of Antonio Brown's outlandish behavior. This is obviously not meant to be a perfect retelling of events. It's just a fun thought exercise with one of the bigger question marks in modern NFL history. Despite the long-term impact that we know of, there was immediate impact as well. The Steelers would go on to win the game against the Bengals, and despite that play giving the Steelers some yards, it did take place on first down. So it's reasonable to assume that they could have won that game as well. So we're going to keep the outcome of that game the same with or without that hit. But without Antonio Brown in the next game, they would lose to the Broncos 23-16. Just to shake things up, let's say with a healthy Antonio Brown, he is able to propel them to one additional score and tie, if not win the game. And we'll just say, again, just for the experiment, that they would win against the Broncos. They then would travel to New England, where I, as a Patriots fan, would love to say that the Patriots would just smoke the Steelers and, have another Super Bowl under their belt. But again, for the sake of the video, we'll give the Steelers the outcome of the team that they just beat. So originally, the Broncos beat the Patriots. Since the Steelers beat the Broncos, we'll say the Steelers beat the Patriots in the conference championship. Now they're on to the Super Bowl. They would enter the game against the Panthers, who were the 1 seed in the NFC, and do exactly what the Broncos did, eviscerate them on a big stage, giving the trio of Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, and Ben Roethlisberger a Super Bowl, cementing Big Ben and Mike Tomlin's legacies even more than they already were when they won their last Super Bowl. And yes, Le'Veon was hurt at this point in the season. He had only played 6 games during this season, but it's still the middle of the Le'Veon era, and he would still get his ring. So we are 3 games into the future, 3 games after that hit wouldn't have taken place, and we've already gotten the Steelers another Super Bowl, along with furthering the legacies of the big 3 of Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, and Ben Roethlisberger. Now, even with that hit happening, Antonio Brown went on to have 2 more All-Pro and Pro Bowl seasons in the next 2 years, in 2016 and 17, and was a Pro Bowler in 2018, his last year with the Steelers. But let's not skip too far ahead. The next big event in what I would call the AB saga would take place in 2018. We can just assume that similar things took place in 2016 and 17 because Antonio Brown was fully healthy for those seasons. Maybe some fewer locker room controversies and locker room disagreements happening, but overall very similar outcomes. But in 2018 was when Le'Veon Bell was threatening a holdout if he was placed on the franchise tag. The Big 3 in Pittsburgh had a tumultuous end in 2018 and 19, but I thoroughly believe that if they had won that Super Bowl, if Antonio Brown hadn't gotten hit, if all of that had happened, Le'Veon would have probably gotten his contract because the owners would have been more incentivized to keep the Big 3 together. They had proven that they could win before, and so keep them happy. They've given you a Super Bowl pretty recently, and let's see what they can do from here on out. Le'Veon may have gotten his big contract in Pittsburgh, and he wouldn't have left the team. This would have kept him playing when he sat out in 2018, kind of in his prime, is what I would call. I mean, he had already had some All-Pro seasons before then, but I think definitely he could have furthered his prime by not sitting out in 2018. And it also, just as a little side note, it would have kept James Conner in the shadows because he definitely stepped onto the scene when Le'Veon was out of the spotlight and when he was sitting out for that 2018 season. I believe that Antonio Brown also would not have left the very next season in 2019, which would have led to a continued breakout from Juju Smith-Schuster. This is another one of those kind of just completely off to the side things that we don't think about with Antonio Brown. But as a rookie, he had almost 1,000 yards. As a sophomore, he had 1,100 yards and was a Pro Bowler. And then Antonio Brown left and he had 550 yards in 2019. And ever since then, it's pretty much been downhill with Juju, the TikTok dances and him getting really popular for the wrong reasons. And then going to KC, being okay, then going to New England and being pretty bad ever since. I think that could have been avoided. He could have been a big part of Pittsburgh's future if he could have developed properly. And I think Antonio Brown, you know, mentally healthy Antonio Brown could have helped with that. To avoid going into too much detail with a bunch of events branching and all taking place, I think 2020 is a pretty good stopping point for this hypothetical. But we'll run through some of Antonio Brown's antics that would not have taken place if he hadn't gotten hit, whether that be throwing furniture out of a window, nearly hitting a 22-month-old baby, speeding through the suburbs of Pittsburgh, several domestic incidents in early 2020, battery and burglary of a U-Haul driver, some questionable things in a pool in Dubai, more domestic incidents, missing child support payments, and declaring bankruptcy, which happened. I fully believe, again, that if Antonio Brown had not taken that hit, the big three would have retired in Pittsburgh and had a much stronger legacy. They kind of fizzled out. Antonio Brown bounced around a little bit, traded to Oakland, then went to New England, then went to Tampa, and he got his ring in Tampa. But if he had just been able to stay in Pittsburgh his whole career, if Le'Veon had never left and gotten that 4-year, $52 million deal, I think that they would have had better legacies. And I think Big Ben may have even retired earlier rather than playing until it was too late and he was getting made fun of for being so bad and so old. I think if the big three had been there, they may have all hung it up together, had a big three retirement at a little bit of an earlier point in Ben's career, or they would have furthered his career as best as they could. But I think that the butterfly effect of this one play has an even wider range of outcomes. And if we're going into 2020, Antonio Brown played a decent enough part in the Bucs 2020 playoff run that ended in a Super Bowl, including a touchdown in their 8-point wildcard win against the Taylor Heineke-led Washington football team. Again, I'm not saying that him not being there would have led to the Washington football team guaranteed winning, but if he scored a touchdown and he's not there, and he also had some other big plays in that game, and for the sake of the video, let's say Taylor Heineke leads not the Commanders at that point. Let's say Taylor Heineke leads the football team to a victory in that, and possibly tarnishes Tom Brady's legacy with him not winning a Super Bowl without Bill, and then maybe leading to another Chiefs Super Bowl victory, because that's who the Bucs beat, was the Chiefs in that Super Bowl. And if we want to keep going, keep talking about this, maybe Tom Brady and his wife don't split up because he actually retires after he has that season in Tampa where he doesn't win the Super Bowl. It's a really interesting series of events that has taken place that all involves Antonio Brown. And looking into the actual football side of it, not just the antics and diva-ness that he's got going on, it is a really, really weird butterfly effect that could happen that we just will never know the outcome of. This has been the first episode in what I would call our What If series on NFL moments. Let me know down in the comments what other moments you would like to see us talk about, what other big what ifs, big question marks you would have. And I will possibly go ahead and look at them. I'll shout you out if I pick your decision or pick your suggestion. Drop a like if you enjoyed this style of video and this kind of style of content where it's not a look at something that's concrete. It's just kind of a what if scenario. Other than that, subscribe, stick around. We've got some big things coming this upcoming season. It's about to get kicked off with the Hall of Fame game this coming weekend. So with all of that, I will leave y'all. Deuces.